evening. Yes, I've got a cup of coffee. I do not know why I drink coffee when I do a live, because I end up really needing a wee halfway through my live. So hello everybody. I will wait for Jerry to come on down, and then we can get started. Hello, hello, hello. I'll wait for Jerry to come in and then we can get started and crack on. Why do I need a wee already? Not good. Hello. People are asking for my blog. Yeah, so Jerry's gonna come on in. And I'll add her. I'm sweating. There we go. Pros. Here we go.
I almost forgot the candle of friendship. I'm not used to being down here on this half.
We need a song. You need to give us a song. We need a song of the week.
Yeah, so this is going to be fun.
I'm excited.
I'm so happy that you asked me to do this. We were just talking about this. Not the candle. We were talking privately about how, and I saw in your stories too that you said nobody has ever asked Jerry really. I mean, I do want to say there have been people that have asked me about it like in interviews, but there's never been anybody that specifically asked me to come on for the purposes of teaching about Black history and talk about my family. There's been, I've shared the story a lot, so I don't want to make it seem like no one cares. I think a lot of people care, but you're the first person that's been like, will you come to just talk about that?
I think it's so important. And Black History Month here in the UK is about rewriting narratives, or reclaiming narratives.
Yeah.
So your own narrative and you reclaiming it, not what someone else thinks it is or what I think it is or the next person thinks it is, but what you think it is. Because that's important, because on social media,
yes,
you put something out there and everybody has a fucking opinion on it. Like, everybody's like, well, my opinion's that on it, and my opinion's that. And it's like, well, it's my truth. There's no one else can have an opinion on it.
So what prepared me for that is growing up in Kansas.
Okay.
What prepared, and I'll tell you why, because Kansas is heavily and predominantly white. Okay? And it's not the kind of white that's up north. It's not the kind of white that's in the South. It's Midwest. And so it's just a different culture of America, a different type of culture within America. And I love being from here, and I love these people. But I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and it was different. And I was told all of the time, how I should feel about being Black, what I should think about being Black. Well, actually, let me tell you, Jerry, and it was always at a caveat of, well, because this one time in high school, I was friends with this Black guy. So I had to get pretty thick skin, and I had to learn that I couldn't fight every single battle. And at that time, Black people were not, let me find the right words. We were not as publicly empowered to speak up in the 90s at all. It just was not that way. There were definitely revolutionaries always in the Black community, people always speaking up, and freedom fighters and whatever you want to call it, they're always there. That's how we progress as a culture, is the people willing to push, right? But it was just a different time. So I had to develop thick skin, and I had to learn that I can't always, it's not always my battle right then in the moment. But it helped me in ways that I could have never seen for social media and prepared me for a lot of like really weird conflict and conflict resolution, I think.
You're very good at.
Well,
I've never
Now,
seen anyone. Oh yeah. So tell me
now,
now.
I think everybody watched the, but that's how I like to learn really publicly because it holds me to it. And there's something about being a hypocrite or not living up to what I said I was going to do that really bothers me and drives me. And so when I admit in the ways that I'm making mistakes and what I'm learning and how I'm growing, if I say it in front of other people, it gives this cloak of
Yeah.
accountability that I have to wear all of the time. And then inversely, if I'm saying all these things on social media, but I'm not doing it in my life, I have to look my children in the
Yeah.
face. And they know. They, you know what I mean? Like they, so it keeps me, yeah, it keeps me like really accountable. And then I find that it's easier for me to do it naturally instead of having to think about being accountable.
And you like one just one thing that I take from you, and I've probably learned from you a lot, is how we can all learn through conflict. Like if we
Yeah.
approach if we approach conflict or disagreements to listen rather than like listen to respond, we want to listen to learn. I'd like to think the world would be a better place. That's just so naive, but you do that so well. So tell me what happened with the shift, because you say you never used to do that very well.
Well, I wouldn't say that I didn't use, let me rephrase and well, let me provide some context actually. I didn't do it very, very well on social media. So I've been practicing being an honest person for, over a decade. Like rigorous honesty is what we call it in recovery. Um, so I think that was the shift within myself, but that was long before I ever came to social media. I think what social media did for me was that it amplified all of my defects. It amplified all the things about myself that I actually really don't like. And then I fell into those things because that's what we do as human beings until we learn that we have other options and then we practice those options just like dogs. We just don't, we just can't see that sometimes. So I think that the big change, so falling into all of the nonsense, falling into my personality vices, which we all have.
Yeah.
Mine is rage. I don't know that rage is the right word. I'm not a really rageful person, but I'm quick to anger.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I think rage is a pretty big, but I'm very quick to anger. I used to be extremely sarcastic, and I didn't realize my first sponsor used to tell me that sarcasm is the ripping of flesh, and I never got that out of my mind. And I was just like, oh, that's terrible. I'm I just come out at the hip all the time because that's my personality. But I think over time, when you get really good mentors, they help you refine the parts of yourself that are really valuable and integrate the parts of yourself that are rough and a little pokey. You can't get rid of that
Yeah.
stuff.
Still you.
You have to figure out how to make it a part of yourself and put it out there in a healthy way. Which part did you want me to say again? I'm so sorry. But that's where that change comes in is you get a couple mentors and you get a really good friend group and you hold each other accountable that your behavior, the standard that you're trying to reach with your behavior is not dipping. So we all fuck up. We all, have days where we're not our best, our best self, carrying ourselves with the most integrity. You just have to say that. Like when you're outside of your integrity, you have to have people that will not yes you through everything. And when you get to a position where you have a lot of people following you or you have a big platform, you can tend to get a little heavy on the yes people.
yeah, it's this echo chamber. It's just like
Mm-hmm.
that we
Yeah.
just that we sit in, and it's so it's rife on social media because of the algorithm. It places you as
Yeah.
people that want you want your beliefs reaffirmed by those people, so it matches you with those people, and
Right.
that
And that,
makes your cognitive bias just even
yeah,
worse because you're like, oh my god, I must be right, I must be right, I must be right.
that's right.
Something I'm keen on doing is saying when I'm wrong, when I've messed up, when I used to think like that or I used to behave like that, but this is how I changed it and this is what I did. And that's super important. And you do that a lot. And that takes balls to do that on social media in front of a lot of people.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, it's better to do it and have the courage to do it and then just keep going day by day than to not do it and deal with what I have to deal with when I don't. It's
do,
makes me more anxious.
do you think that that comes from being able to do that and you have that process of dealing that? Do you think that comes from recovery? Part of it
I
or
think it
all of it?
comes from recovery. I also think it just comes from being a black woman. I
Mm-hmm.
think that it's genetically, I think I carry, I don't know how to say some of the things that I think, and I don't have scientific studies to prove them, and I really don't care. But I think black women carry something that is like a spark or a catalyst for change inside of them, and you have to refine yourself enough that it comes out more than it's internalized, because when it's internalized it turns bad. Those are the words
Mm-hmm.
I have for that.
Yeah.
I don't know, when it's
Yeah.
internalized and everything that we endure and deal with is internalized, it's harmful. But when we can figure out how to, heal and channel that into community, I think that it amplifies in ways that it wouldn't in other spaces with other people.
Yeah.
That makes
Well,
sense? Yeah, I think that
yeah.
makes
No, no,
sense.
no, no. Absolutely. It's
I just
100%.
noticed, I last night I was coming out of the grocery store, and this is in a little town in Kansas. This is just whatever. And I saw this woman in the store, but I didn't say anything because the way I would have had to, it would have been a little awkward. But I noticed that she was in the parking lot near me when I was riding my cart full speed out, like I do every single time. I push it as fast as I can. I jump on it and I ride it down the hole, and I jump off of it and I slam it into my Jeep because it's so fun. And I look over, and this older black woman is standing there 10 feet away from me, and she's looking at me, and she has this rhinestone hat on, cowboy hat, and like this beautiful purple, and she had her glasses on, and she just was so cool. And I was like, you look great. And she goes, so do you. And I looked like this. And I knew that she didn't mean my
Yeah.
outfit. She goes, so do you. And she goes, it's your spirit. I can feel you from over here. I could see you in the store. She said, it's in you. And I was like, it's in you. It's in you. It's in me. And we high-fived, and then she got in like her little prowler or whatever it was, and she drove away because I could see it. It's just something. I don't know.
No, you do know though. You do. You do, and
Madison
it's
tries to
there.
explain it to me, and I'm like, I don't know what she's like, Jerry, come on.
It's there.
She's like, you
Everybody,
got something
everybody can
special.
see it. But everybody can see it. But as a
She was
black
great.
woman, as a black woman, do you do you feel like you have to work harder to show that to people in a certain way?
To show my spirit.
Your spirit or your spark, or because you must just be exhausted more than I am as a white woman on a daily basis. Like just with dealing with shit. Do you think that you Was there ever a point in your life where you had to portray somebody as a black woman that you weren't, and you weren't being your true self?
I'm sure there probably were those times. I don't think on them often though, and I couldn't really bring up, you know, there were certainly times I didn't get parts in musicals I wanted because I wasn't a white woman with blonde hair. You know, so things like that would happen. But when I was very young, my parents, who are white,
Yeah.
but are very cultured and very worldly and wonderful, amazing people, um, they were very, very clear with me from a very young age that what my life would be like and that I was the one that determined where that went. So they just said very simply, you are going to have it extra hard in life because you're a woman and because you're black. You will have to prove yourself. You will probably often be the only one in that space if there have ever been any in there. And you just walk in there and know that you've prepared yourself and that you deserve to be there. And so I was the first black woman in every space that I was ever in. Really, almost every single thing that I do, I'm always the first black woman to do that because I had parents that were just like, and again, I don't think it's because I have some profoundly special ability. It's not that. It's just I'm stubborn. I don't like to be told what to do. Um, and I'm not afraid of failing in front of people. I'm not afraid of failing and having to try again. And I'm also not afraid to ask questions. I don't care if it sounds dumb. I don't care. What's that? Why are you doing that?
Yeah.
What's that? Now, what do you do next? You know, I don't care. I just do the things that I want. And I really do attribute that to my mom and dad.
That's
There was
amazing.
there was never victim mentality. It was never you're oppressed or anything like that. It was always this is just the reality. But it doesn't mean that you can't but be aware. I mean, my mom was a real big Toni Morrison fan. So yeah, that was who you know, and she teaches us that racism is just a distraction from keeping us from being excellent. And so I just don't pay attention to it as best I can.
Yeah.
I know I talk about it, but in my personal life, I just don't give a shit. I don't care what people think about me. I don't care if they're being racist. Like, okay, well, I'm not going to move and I'm not going to do anything. So just be mad over there, I guess. Like,
Carry
I
on
just
being
don't
a
take as much
racist.
because people are mad about everything. They're mad about this. They're mad about that. They're mad about, you know, you just can't,
Please.
you know, I just try to keep my eyes on the prize. And the prize is just my life, you know,
That's
and
admirable.
being excited about it. Yeah.
So, so your mum and dad are both white, and I know you talk about being adopted. Um, when, and this is more me just being nosy now.
That's okay.
When did you know you were adopted?
Well, I think as a black child, you just notice that your parents are white.
Sorry,
You
that's a
know,
really fucking
no, because
question.
you
No,
don't know
it
what my
is.
parents look like. I mean, and let me tell you, the amount of people that cannot tell if, especially back in the 90s, I would have people ask me where I tanned. Like people didn't understand that I was black. You know, there's no like Indians want to claim me, the Mexicans want to claim me, the Puerto Ricans and the Filipinos, they're like,
Yeah.
she's one of us. Look at that
1 minute,
attitude.
Jerry.
No,
I
go
have a
ahead.
little boy.
Oh, little sweetie.
There are chocolate waffles, yeah. Go on. Fuck's sake. Go get a chocolate waffle.
That was the best possible interruption ever. Oh
Well, when
my
he was
god.
little and I used to do lives, he'd appear just naked. Like,
You're like, I'm getting cut off Instagram. Oh my god. That was so adorable. That sounds good. I'm
chocolate
hungry. Yeah,
waffle.
it does.
Anyway,
Anyways,
so
so yeah, I
adoption.
mean, my parents didn't. I don't know if my parents really. I there was not a lot of information that my parents had to give
Okay.
me. So they assumed that I was Black, but they really did not know for sure to tell me. But they asked their friends, and all of their Black friends were like, that's a Black baby. You know, this is Georgia. That's a Black baby. Like, what do you? And they were like, okay, whatever. And my mom found out how to do my hair, and you know, and it was pretty much that. But we were in. My dad was an officer in the Marine Corps, so we were around everyone, every race of people you could possibly. I mean, it was just commonplace to have a totally mixed bag when it came to, and we lived on base, and so that was even more, you know. So I grew up around all kinds of different people, and my parents were friends with all kinds of different people, truly, truly, and knew about them and knew about their culture, and that really wore off on me. I'm very, very, very lucky that I got the parents that I did, for sure. Yeah, but I just started asking questions. I never really asked about my dad. I don't know. I think just when you're little and maybe you just don't think about it as much in that way. But I did ask about my mom a lot. And then once I was an adult, you know, I started looking. My mom was terrified that I was going to be taken away from her. She was absolutely terrified. And at that time in the 90s, there were babies being taken away from their adoptive families and given back to their mothers that they had been with for years. Yeah. And so she was like so mortified. And my mom is kind of a fearful-ish person anyway. She has a lot of trepidation about a lot of things, you know. So once I was older, I started kind of looking. And at that time, you know, the internet was not that old, and you could maybe go to some like message boards to find out about, you know, you could post about your story, and that was really all that was available at that time. Certainly not DNA.
No.
You certainly couldn't upload your DNA in a little kit from home. Yeah, I mean, I remember, so I was working at a veterinary hospital at the time. I was 20, and my mom called me at work, and she said, I went to the safety deposit box to go and get something for your dad's retirement. They were asking for some piece of paper. And she said, and I found a piece of paper with your birth mom's name on it.
Shit.
Right? Well, it was the olden days. And so there was like whitepages.com, and I just typed in her name, and I knew how old she would be. And there appeared this person's name. She has a unique middle name, and her age, and she lived in Ackworth, which is a suburb of Atlanta. And so I knew that was probably her. And so I just called her, and I said, I need to get through what I'm going to say before you hang up the phone. So I need you to just please listen to me. And I think right then she knew who I was. I think she just knew, like, you know. And I said, did you live in Albany, Georgia? And she said, yes. And I go, did you have a baby in September of 1982 that you gave up for adoption? And she said, yes. And I said, I think that I'm your daughter. And she just started screaming into the phone. And she's like, screamed and screamed and screamed. And, you know, of course, I'm just like, and was probably crying. And one of my friends at work was out in this like back area with me. And she said, okay, well, I am working and I have a deadline and it's 4:00, but I want to talk to you. I just can't right now in this moment. And so I said, that's okay. So I called her later and we talked, and you know, that was 21 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. So now I've known her longer than I didn't know her. Mm-hmm.
I like
and
that.
So, yeah, so she asked me what I did in that phone conversation, and I told her that I worked at a vet clinic, and that I also trained dogs on the side. And she was quiet and didn't really say anything about it. And I thought, well, that must have not impressed her. And she really never said anything else to me about my job or about dogs or anything like that. And then that I think a year later, I went to go visit my whole family at Christmas time, and I noted, like, my larger extended family, and I noticed that there was a picture of a man on the wall in, like, they used to dress up when they hunted. They used to look
Yeah,
smart all
yeah.
the time. Yeah, and he was holding a shotgun, and he was standing next to President Eisenhower. And I was like, why would you have that picture in your house? It's just, it's not, I don't know.
Yeah.
I thought, why would you have that picture in
Yeah.
your house? Who is that? And the whole family is like gathering around me. They're like, that's your grandfather. And they started to tell me about this history that my family had generations back, of running gun dogs, and that he was the president's hunting guide and trainer and breeder, and that they were very close friends and really enjoyed each other's company. And I just thought that was incredible. I thought, well, that's weird.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
but he died. He died when my mom was about 2. No, she was 4, I think, and my uncle was 2. So they were little, and they never got to pick up the trade and learn it. And I
But
don't know if they
ask him about it, like to question him about
never.
it, find out
Yeah.
more about it, and
Hmm.
then it's
It
just
was
that it's
just my
just
grandma. It
put
was
off.
just really my grandma that knew, because she had other children that were not by him. Excuse me, he was her last husband, and he had my mom and her brother Robert. And so that was their dad. So the other children would have no knowledge of the history of his family. Obviously, that's not their dad. And um, yeah, my grandma was much, much, much younger than him. So she was young. And I don't think, when you're 40 years someone's senior, we're talking about
Wow.
a very, very different
Yeah.
time, so the 50s. I think you're probably pretty focused on raising the 5 children that you have
Yeah.
now as a widow. So I don't know, and I don't know that she was really interested in dogs, but she was really the one that carried most of his story. And he was also Gullah. Gullah Geechee is a sect of Creole that's over in South Carolina, which is where my family's originally from.
Okay.
And they carry, a dialect that still retains, language that they would have had around the time of slavery, when all of these different West African, regions, nations, tribes were mixing together as enslaved people in the United States. There was a huge, they called it a market there, that enslaved people were allowed to have in South Carolina, like a certain day of the week, and they could gather there together, and they would speak this, like, mash of dialect, and it's
Yeah.
called Gullah Geechee. Yeah, and so those people still exist today. I'm a descendant of those people,
Wow.
and yeah, you can. There's people that there's a guy that has a really cool account on Instagram, and he's a Harvard professor, and he's Gullah, and he teaches it at Harvard. It's cool. Yeah, it's like how there's Creole people in New
Yeah.
Orleans, but they're from a different. It's different. It's not the
Different.
same. Yeah, and they'll be like French speaking there, but Gullah is not that. Gullah is a mix of enslaved people's terminology from Africa.
And it's a
So,
way of communicating
mhm.
without other people
Yes,
understanding.
yes, yes. It's a way of communicating where,
It's
if
like
you think back to the
song.
time, yeah, where they could understand each other, even though they weren't from the same places, they
Yeah.
figured out this common language. And also they could keep their goings on away from, the people that they didn't want to hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
It's I never knew that. That's fascinating. I'm now going to end up in some kind of rabbit hole
yeah,
deep
you did.
diving.
You really need to, because it's really, really interesting. And most people in America don't know what Gullah Geechee is. It's a really small, small group of people
That's fascinating.
that's still carrying it. Yeah, and they practice hoodoo, which is, I think, one of the only religions in America that still carries traditional African religion inside of it. And so it's important. It's an important piece of history.
It's an important piece of American history as well, like super, super important.
Yeah, somebody just said patois. Yeah. So the veterinarian that I've talked about on here, my friend, the black veterinarian that I was like, oh my God, Bree, if you graduate with a degree in vet med, you'll be like the third black woman ever to graduate with a doctorate in agricultural science from Oklahoma. Like her dad is patois. And so he's from Dominica. Yeah, it's there's so many Creole people and we don't learn about it because we don't learn black
But you
history. We
don't, you
learn
don't, we
black
don't, we don't
history
learn it.
through the
Yeah.
lens of white history. And so you miss out on a lot of these really cool stories and
But
oh good.
you know, as white people, we need to be educated on this as well.
Yeah.
And when you have a system that highlights, you know, white history over black history,
Mm-hmm.
and that's all the kids are being taught in school, we're never going to come
Right.
to a point where,
Yeah.
well, people say, oh, you know, racism, it will be dead in a generation. I'm like, well, no,
It's
not if we keep
it has
pumping this.
come a very, very long way and we're doing great. And I always want to be one of those people that like highlights how far we have come, you know, and we always need to remember that.
Maybe not.
But yeah, there's much to be done always. We're human beings and we have a nasty little spirit inside of all of us. And so it's hard to
You've got to unlearn though. Like unlearning is sometimes even more important than learning.
yeah,
Like you,
for
and
sure.
it's harder.
Yeah.
It's way harder. So what when you did something immediately like the penny just go ding when you saw your grandfather and were you like, this makes sense? Like what, or was it later
I
on?
think it finally just dinged for me this last weekend. Like
Really?
really, truly. Yeah, because I think that my grandfather was an incredibly talented, complex person that did something and carried something that was probably heavy to carry. You know, I mean, so this last weekend when I was in Abilene, Kansas for the, which is that where President Eisenhower's from? Is he from Abilene? That would
Don't
be
ask me.
that
I'm
would blow
British.
my mind in ways I
Need to
can't even.
Google it.
Somebody Google it
I'm
really
on
quick.
it.
Somebody Google it and look really quick. Oh my God, that would be insane. No, I don't think he's from Abilene. I think he's from further.
He's
Either way,
from
if he's from
Denison,
Abilene, I'm going to
Texas.
be doubly mind blown.
Born Denison, Texas.
Where did he live in Kansas, though? Where did he grow up in Kansas, though?
Love this.
I can't, like, if this is going to drive me crazy, I should know the answer to this.
Where did Eisenhower
I
grow
just
up
did a
in
story about,
Kansas?
well, not just. I
Abilene.
just,
Abilene in Kansas.
get out of here! Okay, listen. Oh, I can't. I'm so overwhelmed. I feel like a bomb's going to go off in my body. Okay.
Go on, explain. I want to.
Do you know how small Kansas is?
No,
Do you
because
guys
I'm
know?
in
Do you
England.
know the statistical probability of me being at some pointer trial in Abilene, Kansas? Like, okay,
It's like the comments.
I just need a sec. Okay, Abilene
Breathe. Just take a
is
breath.
so small. Like, it would be like somebody saying they were in Rose Hill, where I live. Like, you're just smaller than that. You're talking about a town of like a few thousand people. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
okay.
Like, it's just anyway. So I'm out here in Abilene, and I'm on a Tennessee Walker, and I'm going, and the wind is blowing, and I'm out in this field, and there's all these other hunters and the pointers, and I just felt like it was the coolest thing that I'd ever done in my life. It was there was the pinnacle, other than me having my own dog there and working with my own dog. it was like the most I have ever been absolutely sure that I was doing exactly what I was supposed to be doing with my life, and I was right where I was supposed to be. And I could have only positioned it in such a way that to be right there in that moment, in that time. And it was like I could feel all of my ancestors. I could just, I don't know. I don't have words for it. It was just
At
like a
peace.
knowing. Yeah, it was like a peace and a knowing. And I felt exactly like I belonged there. I don't felt like I looked weird, and I wouldn't have cared if I did, but I didn't feel that at all. I felt like my face when I came back, my boyfriend was like, "How is that?" And I was just like I didn't even speak for like 30 minutes. I just sat there staring because I couldn't, I don't know. It was cool. It was cool because it takes years and years and years of life dedication to have would have even put me in a position where I would have even been there.
Yeah.
Like
But not
I've
just
had
like,
to spend
oh,
my whole life riding horses. I've had to spend my life as a dog trainer. I have to date this guy and get to that point. You know what I mean? Like, how fun for him. You know, that he was like, do you want to go do this thing that blah, 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 blah? And I was like, yeah, and I'm going to be really good at it too. And he was
of
like,
course you are.
okay.
Better than you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bizarre set of skills. I mean, not bizarre, but it's a unique
Yeah,
set of
it
skills.
is. It's
And
niche.
yeah, it's a certain, and you have to be passionate about it. Otherwise, why would you be out there?
Mhm.
And it made me feel like I'm a real dog woman. I don't want to say fake because I think that that's condescending to people, but like I'm a real dog woman.
It,
I come from a line
yeah,
of real dog
it's
men.
through you.
Yeah.
It
And it
it's in
just
your
felt,
history.
nice because a lot of people say a lot of things about my abilities as a trainer, and that I'm not a real trainer, and that I'm just a social media influencer, and that blah 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 blah. And meanwhile, I carry 15 clients at a time all month doing complex behavioral cases, and I still am a good mom, and
Yeah.
I'm a stay-at-home mom, and I do social media full time, and I still have time to take care of my animals and live my life and have my passions. And I just think it's funny sometimes some of the things that people may say. But
And
that's just
you
that's part of it.
but do you know what I resonate so much with you for is people. I hear so much about, oh, we do this for the dogs and we care about the dogs and the dogs, the dogs, the dogs, the dogs, the dogs. 100% love the dogs. But you love the
Thing.
people. You love the people. And I love the people. And you can't have the dogs without the people. You can't.
You
You
can't.
have to think about the owners and like their circumstances and finances and family. And I do that so
Yes.
much when I speak to people. There is not a one size fits all for every dog and owner. And the
Do you
owner's
know why I
sometimes
think that
forgotten.
happens?
But
Do you know why I think that persists in the conversation? And this is why I said earlier, I'm going to probably say some stuff in this conversation that pisses people off. It's Black History Month, so I'm just going to say what I say. In the UK, um, white women tend to have a propensity to complain about things that are not as severe as they think that they are.
we do.
And I think that that is born of privilege. I think it's born of lack of experience in difficult situations. Um, and so I think that this conversation happens where at the center of what we're all talking about, it becomes about feelings instead of why we're all really here, which is actually really cool because it's a common interest.
Yeah.
And common
But white
interests
women,
are really uniting.
yeah, but we're very good at centralizing ourselves.
Absolutely, all the time.
All the time.
If you put a group of 10 women of color out there, and you put a group of 10 white women out there, guess which group's going to be policing what the other group does?
The nice white lady. Oh, you can't say that. Oh, no, we don't say that. Oh, you have to be nice. You
Your
have to be
tone,
polite.
your tone.
Your
I don't like
tone.
your tone.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like the way you're using that. I don't like the way you're doing that.
You're
That's too
angry.
loud.
Mm-hmm.
That's too and it's that can be true at the same time that white women can be beautiful and wonderful.
100%.
You know,
Like, I'm a good
it's just
person.
like
I can be a good person and still work on the fact that I know I'm privileged because I'm a white woman.
yeah.
And white women tears and centralizing ourselves. Is he asking for waffle?
It's my dad. I have money for you. I have $40 for her.
It's $35 for a wristband. $5 is not going to get me anything.
Is that your daughter? The sass. Sass. I have boys. You have no
No, the
sassy
boys,
boys. You just
I don't
have,
even know where they
yeah,
are. They're just living their lives.
right.
I can't help you right now. I'm sorry.
You can't say yes
I
or no,
just
and I'm not
said
giving money.
I only have $40 to give you. If he would like to give you some more money as your grandpa, then he can.
Just say yes or no.
Yes! Does the state of his wallet rise and fall on my yeses and nos?
I told him you were doing a live.
Dad, I need shoes.
I'm asking him because you were doing a live. Means Granddad will give in to me. I'll ask him.
And
Um,
well, it was really about my mother. That whole conversation was about my mother, my white woman mother. You guys,
I have one of those.
that joke was
too.
funny.
That was funny. That was funny. But yeah, it's.
So I think that's what it is. I think that as a general, within the culture, there is a busybodiness that doesn't exist as easily within cultures of color because of the discrepancy of the society that we live in. So it doesn't mean that white women are inherently doing something that black women never do. Like, that's not what I'm saying. It's just when you group people up together, like what we were talking about earlier, and you get in that little echo chamber and you start looking around and you notice that all your little friends are academic white women, question yourself.
Yes.
Stop and say,
yes.
you guys, why are we all look the same? In my group of people, I mean, I'm friends with women that are older than me. I'm friends with women that are a different sexual orientation than me. I'm friends with women that are certainly different cultures and races, and I mean across the board. And I can't tell you, I have women that are different body shapes. I cannot tell you what that's done for my life.
Just
to
women.
Stop
Women.
being around basic bitches.
Yeah.
Stop being around the basic bitches. And listen, we all think basic bitches are the girls with the Stanley cups wearing blazers and Lululemon leggings. And yes, those are some of the basic bitches. But the other basic bitches
Are the ones
are the
that,
groupies of academics. That's about as basic bitch as you can get. When you all, and we're all going to talk about in the studies and the this and the that, and we're all going to, and that's abuse, and you're wrong, and oh my God, I can never, the person that just made the Handmaid's Tale post, did you catch that?
Yeah.
I was like, I can tell you right now, that person has never been kidnapped and assaulted. I can tell you right now, I would never, ever have in my life, as a person that has happened to, I would have never made that reference. Not because of me, but because of the other women.
Yeah.
But
people don't see
would
it.
never be able to look them in the face knowing that I had made a reference comparing a leash pop to being a handmaid in some kind of dystopian future of
No,
Gilead.
it's not. Like, but people don't think. People don't think. And then when you challenge them, they either they get defensive, yeah,
For
or
sure.
yeah, 100%. They get defensive instead of going, okay, I'm going to look into that and figure out why that's wrong.
Right.
Or they block you, like whatever. I've got loads of block people, loads, but they will try and go justify it by going, oh, I didn't intend to do that. Like, your intent does not outweigh
Well, I didn't.
any
Yeah,
impact.
intent and impact. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Like, no,
I mean, I have to acknowledge that too. I think a lot to be able to have these kinds of conversations. I also have to acknowledge about, you know, my intent and my impact, because it does make a difference. And we do have to be aware of, like, it doesn't matter if you weren't trying to be rude. The fact remains that was fucking rude.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's just little things like that. So,
absolutely.
I mean, they're tough. They're tough topics. I encourage people to just, like, there was something in here where someone was like, well, that sounds a little stereotypical. And I can always tell when one of my followers is in the chat, because they'll be like, they won't be rude or anything to the person. They'll just be like, maybe you should sit with that. Maybe you should think about that. Maybe it's something that you're feeling that's triggering you. And I love that, because it shows that my following is like people that are really trying to be self-aware and that are really here to listen to conversations and learn, and not just look at something and be like trash, cynical.
Yeah.
You know, because the climate here is so difficult, and it's so hard to find people that you can learn, not just about dogs, but I think, like, we're all looking for a little bit more than that. And so when you find, like, that's why everybody loves Denise so much. Yeah. Like, yes, she's one of the greatest dog trainers ever to exist.
She's also a wonderful human being. Like,
right.
Just like, why are you so wonderful? Everything that comes out of her mouth, I'm like,
she practices a lot.
But
all of her interactions, she's practicing.
It's
and the private conversations I have with her are way better than the public conversations we have. Because you can see, like, both of us working out, like, putting our egos aside for the purposes of conversation. I don't need to impress Denise. She does not need to impress me. Therefore, we just talk about what we talk about. And sometimes she's like, I don't think that. And I'm like, well, I do.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay. And then we just move, you know, and then we move on. And often we'll revisit topics. And I actually do come to see what she's saying. Or she'll think about, you know, I see what you're saying about that. Or I'll say something to her and she'll go, I've never even thought about that. And I'm like, what? You know, or I'll say something to her and she's like, oh yeah, I've known about that for like years. And I'm like, what? Wow. And so if you don't have people like that around you, it's hard to refine yourself, regardless of your race, regardless of your gender, or your any of it. And I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. Well, I'm grateful for you. I think like super grateful. And
thank you
for just taking the time. I think you need to go deal with some sass now.
I know. Well, the sass is over. He gave her money. I was like, okay, why didn't you just give her the money? Like,
yeah, but look, pick your battle. Pick your battles.
Pick your battles.
He's not.
I mean, he's my dad, so it's like really funny to me. It's like he has to be a dad all over again to her, but it's like worse because, like, now he's old and doesn't put up as much of
whatever. I've dealt with her shit. I'm now not prepared to deal with this shit.
I don't know, but they're so close. She'll get up at like 6 o'clock in the morning to go fishing with him on a Saturday. Like, I don't have to get her up. I don't have to. They play Red Dead together. They play Red Dead Redemption together when they can't see each other. They get on like for like 5 hours at a time. And I'm just like, well, you're with your grandpa, you know.
Love that.
It's cute.
But my little boy's the same with my mum. He cries for her.
Aww.
And I'm like, am I not good enough? He's like,
Yeah,
Homework.
because they give them candy and then they give them back to us. And I'm like, thanks, Mom. We made it through our candle, everybody.
Yay! Oh, Jerry, thank you. There's so much more we could talk about. Like, I could talk to you all night, but I super appreciate this hour, and I'm really glad I had you on to chat, and I hope people learned something.
I hope so too. And I'm happy to come back anytime and also do like a talk that's more centered around where the culture came from and how it developed and where it is now.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
Sally.
Bye.